There are days you'll be weak, there are days you'll be lost. There are times where you feel you wanna run and hide. There are days you'll be down, and you start to wonder if the world would be better off if you died. I have those days too, but I believe I'm gonna make it through, and I won't run away, I won't die. I'm gonna level up, be the best that I can be, and I'm not gonna stop questing until I'm a hero. I'm gonna level up, be the best that I can be. I swear that I'll become unstoppable, and you'll beam right at me. I've gotta see this through, I can't look back until the end. Rise from rock bottom to the future I've seen in my dreams. So come on, let's go level up.
エイプリルフールの動画出したんだよね。で、あの時によく言われるのが、あの時点でもう RPG は決まってましたよね。作ってたんでしょって言われるんですけど、あれは本当にエイプリルフールだけのための動画だった。だからそこからある程度受けたんで、大慌てで舵をそっちに切って。
Like a Dragon being a brand new turn-based RPG on an existing concept is a breeding ground for fresh ideas. The Like a Dragon series, as it was, had plenty of pre-existing elements making it a fantastic candidate for turn-based conversion. Obviously, right? It's an action RPG. It already has an equipment system, level progression, and so on. But it isn't known for its consistency when it comes to gameplay systems. The series' identity is more so established by its greatest hits than it is by any one perpetual inclusion. So of course Like a Dragon 7 is a party-based RPG. Some of its most popular entries feature multiple playable characters. Of course Like a Dragon 7 has a class/job system, because style switching is easily the golden feature popularized in Yakuza 0. From there, it's all about layering more recognizable series elements on top. Picking up weapons in the environment became timing your attacks with environmental awareness to trigger bonus damage. Knocking down opponents to pummel them became an attack with advantage while they were still down. And probably my favorite holdover from the action RPG entries, enemies gained attacks of opportunity if you ran past them to engage a different opponent. All these mechanics exist as a result of Ryuga Gotoku modifying the focal points of its fighting system into turn-based features. It's saturated in the series' identity, and a huge part of it comes from taking advantage of positioning. Hitting multiple targets at once or following up a knockdown with a rushed attack before the enemy can get back up is the bread and butter of Like a Dragon's turn-based system, and it reflects the playstyles of its action RPG brethren. Previously, I revisited Dragon Quest because Like a Dragon 7 has been said to be directly inspired by it. I'm hesitant to call Like a Dragon Quest because in truth, it borrows much from other RPGs as well. The job system and even unique character classes each party member can take are definitely reminiscent of Dragon Quest. Ichiban's hero class is parallel with Dragon Quest III's hero. Both possess a basic offensive spell that grows stronger at higher levels, both possess strong healing abilities and have mid-level magic points, meaning casting spells is always the second option to basic attacks. Nanba is the sage class, possessing both strong offensive and healing spells with the magic power to back it up, but trading off health to do so. Adachi is your classic warrior tank, and Saeko is your fighter with a little bit of thief mixed in. Enemies in 7 are grouped into archetypes similar to Dragon Quest's enemies, with stronger versions of the same archetype changing in outfit colors or donning more extreme versions of their clothes. Our map is an overworld with distinct regions, and the enemies in those regions have unique level ranges that immediately deter players from being there if they're too low a level. Like a Dragon 7 even sports a no game over option where you lose half your money, just like in Dragon Quest. But that's where the similarities end. Like a Dragon 7 also borrows from Pokemon, turning every enemy into a Sugimon and challenging the player to fight them all and complete the Sugidex, a bestiary collecting information on all the weirdos of Yokohama and beyond. It takes the social mechanics from Persona and gives Ichiban a social stat wheel he can increase with certain dialogue choices and actions, as well as a social link system between Ichiban and his party members. 7 also has action commands in the style of the Super Mario RPGs. Timed presses can increase damage on attacks or reduce damage on well-timed blocks. And no heavily inspired RPG would be without Final Fantasy summons, which, of course, 7 has plenty of. Although Dragon Quest is an integral part of Kasuga Ichiban's backstory, Like a Dragon 7 doesn't pigeonhole itself into Dragon Quest trappings, and in fact, comes off as a celebration of turn-based RPGs in general. However, it's after taking all of this into account when 7's strength as a turn-based RPG begins to wane.
まあでもそういうなんだろうドタバタしてものを作るっていうのがまだ龍河如くスタジオの一つの特徴でもあるんだけど、毎回でもそうですよ。
It's no secret the series has issues with development time. RGG Studios makes these games fast, obscenely fast, and it's most obvious with Like a Dragon 7. Short development time plagues every component. The job system is simultaneously bloated and underwhelming. At the root of the problem is every character starting out with a unique job only accessible by them. These jobs also possess the strongest abilities for each character and are naturally skewed to favor their dominant stats. Stat bonuses for reaching certain levels in each job don't carry over either, so there's no incentive to swap them out for one of the generic jobs. Even if you do swap, only 2 abilities in each job can be carried over into other jobs. Every character inherits the same abilities from each job. If everyone learns the same abilities from the same jobs, but none of the work put into those jobs carries over in a significant way, then how do any of these characters stand out mechanically aside from the default job they start with? For example, you can't think, oh, Nanba has high magic stats, so I'll take him through the magic-oriented jobs to get him stat boosts in the appropriate attributes. This doesn't work. Because you're throwing out all those stat gains with a job switch, what really matters are those character skills. But because Like a Dragon 7 utilizes elemental resistances and physical attack typing like blunt or piercing, it's important to give every character at least one move in each of those categories. This way, no matter what kind of enemy you're fighting, everyone has a way of attacking its weakness. You do this by running them through every job until they learn the skill in question, then jumping to the next. Once you've gotten all of those, it makes the most sense to swap them back to their original class, where they can unlock their wholly unique abilities and gain their catered stat boosts. So by the end of the game, what sets your characters apart is the class they started out as in the first place. Oh. Now, in its defense, this is the route RGG Studios expects most players to take. Those transferable skills are relatively easy to collect, and the appeal of giving everyone their unique class far outweighs that of assigning them a one-size-fits-all class, especially when the best equipment you can get is related to those unique classes. And it's fun. It's fun to snatch and grab every crossover skill and play with a mismatched party early on, throwing out whatever eclectic set of attacks we have available. It feels good to have an answer to any and every enemy on any and every character. 7's turn-based system, in practice, is fundamentally satisfying to play with, but what is the point of even having a job system in the first place if the end destination is the start? Here's where my prior experience with Dragon Quest comes in handy. Where are the advanced jobs? Where's the pattern of growth and planning out a character's job path based on the requirements necessary? What 7 has is a good baseline for a job system, but none of the advanced or even intermediate features a job system needs to stand out or be thoroughly robust.
15年やってたら普通はマイルストーンがあってロングテールなプランがあるじゃないですか。うち意外とないんで。
It all comes back to time. The time RGG Studios didn't have to develop a structured job system. See, the problem here isn't that the system is bad, it's just incomplete. We can see it in the way the job system is built, but we can also see it in the little inconsistencies, such as the foreman job being the only job that has an exploration ability attached to it without explanation. Inconsistencies, like the balance in this turn-based RPG being all over the place. Low-level abilities doing show-stopping damage, enemies with way too much health or impenetrable defenses drawing battles out into boring slogs, Eri Kamataki being an absolute unit of murderous intent and destruction. And it's really strange how the musician job in 7 is the only one with its own unique voltage mechanic. It's the only job with an extra level of depth and makes you wonder why none of the other classes have similar ideas involved. But we also see it in what RGG Studios didn't do. What happened to heat? And no, I'm not counting the magic points you use for abilities. That's not building heat. This is a strange point to make, I know. But you would think the most iconic mechanic in Like a Dragon would show up here as like a limit break parallel or as an incentive to attack enemies in a specific way or something. Like maybe being in heat would make environmental attacks stronger or activate heat moves if conditions were right. It's also odd how important positioning is in 7's fights given we don't have any control over it. There's no abilities that directly affect where we're standing in regards to an enemy, or a movement phase where we can set up some kind of combo move, and there aren't any position-specific combo moves or abilities to take advantage of in the first place. Positioning in 7 isn't random so much as inconsequential, leaving players confused as to why so many mechanics rely on it. Again, there's an incompleteness to this turn-based RPG I can't shake. Some of the pieces are missing, and other pieces are the wrong shape or size, but I gotta tell ya, it almost doesn't matter, because there's so much it gets right. Status ailments run amok in 7. Bosses lack total resistances to them, about half of your skills inflict them, and some skills prefer it when an enemy is suffering from one. A common strategy I found relied on using Han to poison bosses or stacking status ailments on enemies and then using his Fatal Rush ability, which deals bonus damage if enemies are afflicted by a status ailment. Knocking down enemies can leave them vulnerable to a powered up basic attack, but after raising Ichiban's bond with other party members, we can trigger automatic follow-up attacks that can also trigger after attacking an already downed enemy, which knocks them down again, which opens them up for another attack, and can be chained indefinitely so long as automatic follow-ups keep happening before their turn comes up, resulting in huge damage. Some abilities do more damage the less health you have, or are directional, meaning they'll hit any enemy in its trajectory, going back to the focus on using the right ability at the right time. Within their unique jobs, each character in our party serves a purpose, and we get a lot of mileage out of each one, like using Nanba as a healer-mage hybrid, or Adachi to provoke enemies and tank attacks, Saeko to buff the party and debuff the enemy, and Eri to harvest the souls of the damned through her judgment gaze. Despite how half-baked its job system is and how shallow your character progression will most likely end up being, fights in Like a Dragon 7 still have that essential, thought-provoking engagement any good turn-based RPG needs to have. Even though it's easy to see the potential left on the table, the core concepts at the heart of 7's gameplay shine through to make something enjoyable.
Oh, fuck! He's got the scar and everything! What the hell? How did you survive? You got turned into Swiss cheese! I need to play some soft, jazzy tunes here inside this bar. Yeah.
What the
fuck? Ichiban knows about tea?
何その女子力高そうな知識。
最近立ち読みした雑誌の受け売りだよ。
でも実際効果ありそうよね。
試してみるか。
Yokoyama's doubts about how the new cast of characters would be received weren't unfounded. The way they closed out Kiryu's story left some pretty big shoes to fill. He was a character with gravitas, a stalwart, unbeatable hero with a storied past and epic battles under his belt. His departure from the series meant a clean slate for whatever came next, but a financially risky first-time appearance for the character who would take his place. So Yokoyama shoots his shot with Kasuga Ichiban, Kiryu's polar opposite. Kasuga is loud, brash, and impatient. He's a social butterfly, empathetic to a flaw, and a shrewd judge of character. Rather than describe everything about him to you, it's easier to understand Kasuga through the in-game mechanics related to his personality. Style, passion, confidence, charisma. intellect, and kindness are the 6 social stats we manage in Like a Dragon. As Ichiban, the actions we take or dialogue choices we make will increase one of these stats. The same goes for doing group activities like karaoke or learning lessons from old movies. Once a social stat is high enough, Ichiban can advance his relationship with certain characters and unlock access to specific jobs in the job system. The social stat mechanic is an important and ever-present factor in Kasuga's day-to-day life, but it's also representative of his personal growth. Kiryu had most of his life figured out. With so many years behind him, there was little room for him to grow. But Ichiban is a fresh start. Yokoyama made the right choice here. A character with limitless potential and a wide range of possibilities for development. Ichiban's first outing would be about exploring who exactly he was going to be, and by extension, what exactly Like a Dragon was going to be from now on. And so, a huge chunk of Like a Dragon 7 is dedicated to growing Kasuga Ichiban as a person. The party system in Like a Dragon 7 isn't just for the sake of having a turn-based RPG. Kasuga Ichiban is not a one-man army like Kiryu was. Having him fight in a group provides us with a sense of how strong he is, but also makes it clear he isn't the type of person to act alone or turn away help when he needs it. His unique abilities in fights are exclusively related to healing and buffing the rest of the party with heroic rallies and passionate expressions of love. Ichiban's hero class is a major support role, further implying his individualism comes second to the safety and protection of his allies. The turn-based nature of 7 is a direct result of Ichiban envisioning himself as a hero from Dragon Quest, allowing his opponents a chance to act before he takes his turn. Kasuga can nurture his bond with his party members by fighting alongside them, and then increase their bond level by sharing a drink with them at the bar. Each of these bonds reaches a conclusion where Ichiban goes out of his way to help his friends with personal matters, showing his compassion towards the people he cares about. Incidentally, this is also how to unlock the other jobs for your party members, Ichiban's way of inspiring the people around him to believe in themselves more. Every aspect of exploration in Like a Dragon 7 is meant to detail the kind of individual Kasuga Ichiban is, to shape him into a brand new hero for us to observe. The way we explore Yokohama as Ichiban speaks to his resourcefulness. Ichiban scrounges for change underneath vending machines or collects cans in return for a small income. He grows his own plants and picks up bits and baubles he finds lying around to cobble together into new equipment or homemade meals. A few areas in Yokohama are inaccessible to him until he improves his style or his charisma. Secret shops with powerful items are tucked away behind construction scaffolding he can't clear away without the proper job experience. Your eagerness to find and access these areas is Ichiban's eagerness, one predicated on his competitive nature, the same competitive nature that feeds his obsession with vocational certificates, fighting his way through a physical challenge, or go-kart racing. But he's also eager to be in good company while doing any of this. Ichiban loves sharing a meal with his friends and often sparks conversation over dinner. Landmarks in town will start a dialogue between him and his party. In small but wonderful ways, we watch him grow closer to his found family. And the more we explore, the stronger those bonds get. Ichiban's curiosity often gets the better of him, a trend the sub-stories in Like a Dragon 7 run with in order to get our hero into bizarre situations. Whereas Kiryu would often begrudgingly help passers-by or reluctantly involve himself in the goings-ons of Kamurocho, Ichiban is quick to step in with or without permission. And because he isn't as serious or stoic as Kiryu, many of Ichiban's shenanigans spiral out of control. He often finds himself at the center of a misunderstanding or scheme gone awry. Ichiban's sub-stories have a heavy comedy element attached to them, whether it's a giant Roomba going haywire or a zoo animal escaping from its cage to cause havoc. The scenarios we encounter are always over the top, and the ones that aren't tend to be slow, emotionally heavy rides that crush our hearts into a million pieces. The sub-story where you help a little girl collect donations for her brother's surgery shattered my soul and made me weep. Unlike previous characters in the Like a Dragon series, he completely devotes himself to helping others any chance he gets, to the point where he signs up to be a part-time hero. Like a Dragon 7's version of the completion list, and tertiary side quests featuring delivery missions and fighting specific enemies in specific areas. Our understanding of Kasuga Ichiban is as comprehensive as the world of Like a Dragon 7 itself. We haven't even mentioned the chests scattered across the map, the dungeons you can crawl through for special items and unique enemies, or the numerous play spots making their return in Like a Dragon 7. Though I suppose I can't make all of the exploration relate to Ichiban's character growth. The fact is, 7's world is incredibly dense and full of activities to do, so much so that it's difficult to avoid getting caught up in trying to find new areas you haven't been to yet, or spending time at one of the various minigames it has to offer. In this way, we continue to match up with Ichiban's tendency to fall into some new fixation. But it's no surprise 7 is as dense as it is. This is, after all, the Like a Dragon title directed by Majima Saga writer and karaoke expert Ryosuke Hori. I'm sure you're expecting a collection of quotes from Ryosuke Hori about navigating the map or his thoughts on being a director for Like a Dragon 7, but there's not much out there in terms of interviews. See, usually there's a ton of post-launch interviews I use to help paint a picture of what went into developing each entry in question. In my experience doing research for this series, developers tend to be more forthcoming about details after the game's been out for a month or two. But Like a Dragon was initially released on January 16th, 2020, and it wouldn't be out worldwide until November 10th, 2020. Within a few weeks after 7's original release, the world was busy dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic. This is the likely reason why Sega's internal interviews during this time were being done via webcam over the internet. It's also why there aren't many interviews in general about Like a Dragon 7 at all. Everything during this time more or less slowed to a crawl, which means my little retrospective series doesn't have a lot of background information to support itself with. Though I'm sure once this video goes out, I'll magically come across 50 different super useful articles I could have used. Trust me, I've been doing this for years now. It always happens. Still, Hori brings with him a lifetime of experience with the Like a Dragon franchise. He's a perfect fit for the role, considering he's been working on the series' playspots since the early days of Yakuza 2 and 3. It's not a shock to anyone that the man who fought tooth and nail to get karaoke added to Like a Dragon put a ton of new songs into 7. But as director, Hori is given more liberty to implement playspots in the way he chooses, and is in charge of creating the great sense of exploration we get in Like a Dragon 7. His goal was to somehow incorporate traditional RPG elements into a modern setting.
何もない状態から這い上がっていくリアルな世界でのレベルアップっていうのはどういうものだろうっていうので最初何もない状態からスタートさせたかったのでそういう設定にしたりというようにゲームとしてのそういう RPG とかであるようなものっていうのをいかに現代のものに落とし込むかというところは常に意識して制作していますので、はい、そういったところに目を、向けていただけると嬉しいかなと思っています。
And I'd say he nailed it.
I'm sorry, Catherine, but I'm about to bludgeon your brains out with my big hammer. And maybe get you to fall in love with me with this flower. That seems to have done nothing. If I could if I had a body, I would learn a body explosion attack. And if I was immortal and I could generate a body explosion attack, I think I would want the aura of my body explosion attack to be a fire element. Because then I could walk into a room and go, it's time to turn up the heat. What the fuck? What? What the fuck? What is he doing here? You definitely aren't supposed to be here. That man got a bullet in his fucking forehead 5 games ago. We saw him die.
I don't have as many notes on 7's narrative as I do with its mechanical restructuring. It has to do with its themes leaving me in perpetual shock. It's hard to believe a series as xenophobic as Like a Dragon could tell a story about the plight of immigrants without demonizing... Oh. It's hard to believe a series as committed to its poor portrayal of women could... Never mind. In all fairness, Like a Dragon 7 is leagues above its predecessors in terms of being more conscientious about its portrayal of non-Japanese people and its treatment of women. But for every 2 steps forward, there is a single significant half step back, one hamstringing 7's attempts to be better about its flaws. Saeko, one of 2 women party members, has a strong presence in the narrative and is written as an independent, proactive character without falling into headstrong or stubborn stereotypes about strong women. On numerous occasions, Saeko will clarify misconceptions held by the men about women and often keeps the rest of the party in check when they step out of line. 7 does this in a matter-of-fact way, as though its players should know these things already. It essentially makes the assumption players know better, but also aims to correct those misconceptions. However, the party, the characters we're supposed to be fond of, still cross the line often.
っていうか見違えたよ改めて見るとやっぱセクシーじゃん
Saeko is the butt of sexually charged jokes from her own friends and of sexually charged jokes made by the narrative itself. Situations where she's the victim of sexual assault played for laughs. There's also an unnecessary and frankly out-of-character implication of jealousy directed at Songhui, one of 7's few women characters significant to the narrative, over the rest of the party's infatuation with her. While Like a Dragon 7 can have credit for having women take important roles in its story and characterizing them in elevated ways, it loses that credit for dipping into lame humor at the expense of those characters' strengths and tangentially reducing them to competing eye candy. Most of the other women you can interact with in Like a Dragon 7 are romance options for Ichiban and quite literally throw themselves at him. Although there is a comeuppance for romancing all of them, there's very little in the way of giving those women characters solid identities for this to have a stronger payoff. On one hand, having playable women in your party is a huge deal for a series known to avoid having women combatants. Saeko and Eri are a good push in the right direction, and their inclusion is defended by the game's writing itself. But the gender-locked jobs in the job system stymies their growth and potential as party members. With only half as many jobs to access, less if you don't have the DLC, the women party members don't have as much variety in their skill pool. Over the course of the game, they quickly fall behind the men in terms of access to skills and utility options in fights. This back and forth 7 has, where it wants to present a more progressive view of its women characters, but can't help making sexist jokes about them or limiting their ability to be on equal footing with the men, messes up a lot of the heart behind what I want to believe was a good faith attempt at being better. On the surface, Yakuza Like a Dragon is a story about the complicated areas of society. Gray zones where blanket statements are inaccurate and no one perfect solution exists on how best to deal with them. It's about the people within those gray zones, the circumstances that find them there, and the consequences of having their de facto livelihoods ripped away. People, judged not by the quality of character or intent, but by the corners they've been backed into, or less than pure professions they find themselves in. Our hero is a product of these gray zones. Born in a soapland, raised by sex workers and the people making ends meet in Kamurocho, and therefore sympathetic to them. In a controversial scene, Ichiban takes a job from a seemingly oppressive soapland owner for the sake of the women working for him. Shortly thereafter, Like a Dragon 7 makes it a point to say there are worse places these women could be working at, and while the old man can be crude, he does care about the well-being of his employees. Rather than admonishing Like a Dragon 7 for this character, we should focus on how he represents exactly the kind of situation people living in the gray zone are in. For many, this is their only opportunity to survive, and while there are many dangers to living in the gray zone, eradicating it doesn't necessarily improve the situations of the people inside. 7 itself doesn't want you to sympathize with this shitty soapland owner, but it does want you to acknowledge the complicated reality he represents.
Come on, we all know he wasn't the greatest guy. And he was selfish, too.
It's not asking you to forgive people like this. It's showcasing the conditions of the gray zones and trying to humanize the people working there. Enter the primary opposing force Ichiban comes face to face with, Bleach Japan, a group dedicated to bleaching Japan white by pushing out the gray zones and the people living there through any means necessary. Bleach Japan's central mission is to eradicate all the gray zones of Japan. It demonizes the people who work in the gray zones and claims their presence is poisonous to Japan's public image. Bleach Japan employs all manner of obnoxious tactics to justify their points, including trying to incite violence to make themselves look like the victims, hiring goons to be a part of their protests and extort the local businesses, and even going so far as to vandalize the homes of people living in the gray zone to force them out. And of course, the irony is their totally zealous crusade is backed by high-standing officials in the Japanese government who are backed by the largest Yakuza family in Japan. But what makes this interesting isn't necessarily that Bleach Japan is backed by bad people, it's who in particular Bleach Japan targets.
Get out of town, illegals! And let us in!
Immigrants. They target immigrants. Like a Dragon 7 is partly about immigration. When Bleach Japan begins protesting at the soap plant Ichiban is working at, it just so happens its employees are foreigners, making money to send back to families or simply support themselves. When Bleach Japan spreads its protest into the heart of Ijincho, it targets Koreatown and the Gyomi Jewel, a Korean-Japanese criminal organization. Bleach Japan attempts to incite a war between the Chinese-Japanese Yokohama Lumang and the Japanese Seiryu clan. And once they gain a solid foothold in Yokohama late into the story, they set a trap for the Gray Zone immigrants, promising to secure them new jobs, but in secret forcibly deporting them back to their original countries. Every antagonistic step taken by Bleach Japan in some way targets immigrants or the children of immigrants. The Yokohama Lumang literally translates into Yokohama refugees and are made up of the families of migrants who formed a group to protect the Chinese immigrants who found themselves in Yokohama. The Gyomi Jewel were formed by ex-members of the Jingwan Mafia, who sought safety and protection but couldn't find work due to their criminal backgrounds. Throughout the course of Like a Dragon 7, both organizations go from initial impressions of generic evil groups into storied families who did what they had to in order to survive, even at the cost of their reputation. Things such as being absorbed into a convoluted counterfeiting scheme put in place to prevent all-out war between the crime families. The Ijin 3, as they're called, despite leadership standing unified in their scheme, must keep up the appearance of a tenuous, strained relationship in order to protect their own people from harm. Rather than paint them as unequivocally evil, Like a Dragon wants us to believe these crime organizations exist as a result of anti-immigration sentiment. Essentially, if the families of these immigrants didn't need to be protected from people like Bleach Japan, there'd be no need for their criminal activity. The problem, as there always is with Like a Dragon, is that these organizations also need to be the early game villains. So, there are plenty of problematic depictions of immigrants and foreigners within these groups. The example which makes me laugh the hardest is when an entire factory of Chinese laborers turns on your 4 Japanese party members. I'm pretty sure most of them aren't even part of the Lumang, but the minute the foreman shouts,
Hey, these 4 Japanese are thieves!
every worker in this factory is suddenly a combatant. We also can't forget the Gyomi Jewel firing crossbow bolts at any outsider attempting to enter their turf, the fact they're stealing electricity from the entire dockside restaurant area, and straight up kidnapping people who get too close to their operations. Even having 2 party members be of Chinese and Korean descent respectively doesn't remove them from their criminal backgrounds or sufficiently redeem their previous actions before joining the party. Like a Dragon 7 sort of steps on its own toes here. Good ideas or positive representation get murky because of pitfalls the writing can't seem to crawl out of. But even so, 7 is leaps and bounds above the rest of the series in this regard. There's instances of characters correcting other characters on the appropriate way to address certain people or how to refer to an area respectfully. Even with its missteps, it goes out of its way to be sympathetic towards foreigners and descendants of immigrants. And as much grief as I can give it for treating its women in the way it does, it's also obviously trying to be better about its past portrayals and inclusions. I can't remember a sub-story in Like a Dragon 7 relying on putting down a woman character, making one cartoonishly evil, or punching down jokes at their expense. That opening cutscene had me worried, though. The only one I can remember focusing on a woman at all was a sub-story, the adult baby one, that has a great discussion about how difficult it is to be a new mother. How a good father should focus less on being at work all the time, and more on being home with their new child and recovering significant other. I guess your mileage here is going to vary depending on what you want out of the series in terms of it getting better, but if you were to ask me if I thought the increased absence of poor representation should be considered a vast improvement, in this case I'd say, yeah, absolutely. Just temper that excitement with the reality it still has a lot of work to do before it redeems the series' past. But what about the rest of Like a Dragon 7's messaging? Where is our obligatory breakdown of what it all means? Where's our schmaltzy regurgitation of what it's all about before and after the intermission sequences this retrospective has come to use? You might have to look elsewhere. I'm having the hardest time talking about the themes of Like a Dragon because most of it is so straightforward, it's difficult to find a part of it to analyze. This isn't a bad thing either. Just like Ichiban, Like a Dragon 7 wears its heart on its sleeve, and its surface level storytelling is so transparent that you don't need me to explain it to you. But I'll try, just for the sake of saying I did. Like a Dragon is about starting over. In some way or another, every party member in Like a Dragon has had some sort of life-changing setback. Ichiban takes a fall for the sake of his surrogate father. Nanba and Adachi both lose their jobs after taking big risks. Saeko has an estranged relationship with her family. Eddie's control of her business was basically ripped away from her. Jungi Han's entire identity has been replaced and then loses the purpose behind it in the first place. And Chao doesn't get a lot of screen time before joining the party, but we can say his setback is handing off his entire criminal organization off to somebody else. Whether it's redemption, recovery, or reconciliation, each of them is working from their own rock bottom back to where they'd like to be, each exploring the possibilities open to them. But 7 largely focuses around Ichiban specifically. Ichiban loses everything and starts over from scratch, or as he would put it, level 1. There's no sad moment of reflection or defeatist attitude from him. He turns his gaze to the next goal, the next step. After reaching the bottom, he takes his first step upwards almost immediately. And it isn't just about starting over. It's about starting over in your 40s, at a point in your life where most people have their priorities set or are embedded in a career they'll probably remain in for the rest of their working days. And not just about starting over in your 40s, but the fear of having to start over in your 40s. Our villain is a man who felt powerless in his youth and utilized his privilege to gain power and wealth. But the more power he gained, the stronger the fear of losing said power grew within him. Rather than stop while he was ahead, he sought more power in order to calm his fears. But the search for power fed his despair. His fear of having nothing twisted his desires and made him into a bitter, manipulative man who would do anything to maintain control. Our hero is born without privilege, working himself to the bone to obtain what he wanted the most, a sense of belonging. He loses it, and down at the bottom, with no prospects or opportunities, learns a valuable lesson. No matter how old you are, or how far you've fallen, you can always start over. He finds a new sense of belonging. He finds new friends, and even in his older age, finds plenty of opportunity to better himself. But this man relinquished his fear of losing it all when he gave away what he had for the sake of another, while our villain fostered his fear by taking what he wanted from others. Light and shadow, 2 crossing paths, one trying to save the other from succumbing to the darkness harbored in his heart, telling him it's going to be okay, assuring him that starting over isn't as frightening as he thinks. I wish I could genuinely say I was just like Ichiban. I wish I could see everything I've built burned to ashes and find the seed of renewal in the pile. But the truth is, I'm scared. I'm 30 years old. I've got no prospects. I've got no opportunities waiting for me in the wings once I get my shit together. All I've got is this channel and a handful of dreams sifting through my fingers. I've realized that sooner or later, if nothing picks up, I'm gonna have to give it up and start over at the bottom, just like Ichiban. But thanks to him, I'm not as terrified as I once was. Thanks to Like a Dragon 7, I'm kind of looking forward to it. Starting over after dedicating years of your life to one singular goal is mortifying. I imagine it's an outcome we all work to avoid. Human beings, we're passionate, stubborn creatures. We don't like being wrong about our decisions or our beliefs. We will painstakingly push up against any and all resistance we meet on the way to achieving our dreams, even if it kills us in the process. We're all capable of so much, of enduring so much, and we do so in fear of losing everything we've worked so hard for, everything we care about. Because if and when we lose them, we discover there's nothing left to prove we were here. But it doesn't have to end at the end. You can start over somewhere new and climb your way back up again. You can chase a new dream with new friends and new beginnings. And you can push up against any and every obstacle in your way just like you did last time. The adventure is brand new and the starting point is rock bottom, but the experience you've gained stays with you. Every dream you've had to give up on, every friend you've lost or person you've had to walk away from, every failure from your past forges the steel of your future. You can do this. I know you can.